But luckily, it seems like you didn't really let it get to you too much, and you were able to
No.
translate into the next phase of your life where you became what I think you said one of the top 5% salespeople in your industry. Can you tell me a little bit how that change came about and what you ended up going into?
Yeah, so, when I got divorced, I found myself broke, no money, 3 kids, and having to reinvent myself because now I had to work. And it became very clear to me that I would have to bring in a paycheck, so to speak. And so the
Hmm.
first I did many odd jobs here and there, and then I got my real estate license and had a really good run with that in a small at this point we were living in Park City, Utah, and that was what everybody did in a small town. You sold real estate. And so I decided to get my license and work for somebody who was the number one realtor and be his assistant and
Hmm.
learn from the best. I had 3 kids and I didn't have time to start my own real estate, journey. I just thought I'll work with somebody who's already got it all going on and learn from them on how this all works. And that was the best decision I could have made cuz I learned so much working for him. And 2008 happened and the first market to go was a second home multi-million dollar market.
Yep.
And so I took a big hit. And in September of 2008, I had the kids go live with their dad in California. And I left Park City and went to go live with my mom in Ocala, Florida, and literally lost everything at that point and had to start all over and did not know what I was going to do. Felt very, very like for the first time in my life, felt super alone. Like my kids are living with their dad. I have no money. I'm now living with my mom. I'm in my 40s. I don't have a lot of skills. I barely graduated high school, and I didn't have the educational skills. And when I say I didn't have a lot of skills, what I really mean to say is I didn't know that I didn't know
Hmm.
what my skills were. I knew I got a sense when I was doing real estate because I remember Rich asking me who I worked for. Rich asked me, "Are you good with people?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm really good with people." And he said, "I think we're going to be a good team because I need somebody to manage all the listings, my clients, call them." And I had no problem calling everybody every week and getting on the phone and talking. And he was burned out. He didn't want to do that anymore. And that's when I really realized. And then the second big job I took was in New York. And that person asked me the same thing. "Are you good with people?" And I go, "Yeah, I am." And so I worked for a print procurement company for about almost 2 years. And during that time, I reached out, just funny how the universe works. I reached out to the gentleman who did our life insurance when I was married. And I
Hmm.
had been referring him business, a lot of business. And I called him and I said, "Hey, I refer you a lot of business. Can I start getting a referral fee?" And he said, "Deb, go get your license." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So now on the weekends, I'm studying to get my license. And I was doing the print procurement and studying to get my life insurance license. And in the summer of 2011, I'm back in California. I now have my kids and I started working life insurance full time. And and what I learned was from the print is that all those people that I was doing business with in the print procurement business, a lot of them became my life insurance clients. And I just realized that the only way I was really going to make a career for myself is to call everybody I knew and basically ask for their business, ask for the opportunity. Can I do your life insurance? And I did that every day my first year, and it paid off because even though some of those people said no to me, which I say no means maybe, because even if they didn't do it, they said, "I'll refer you business." And they did. I get texts today. "Are you still selling life insurance? I have somebody I want to refer you to." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's such a huge compliment that people still refer." That's my biggest in my industry, referrals are the biggest compliment. So I said no means maybe because I learned a big lesson that, the first response normally in life insurance, because it's not a sexy business, is I have a friend, I have somebody that does that. I'm good. I'm all taken care of. And I would write on my yellow pad, no means maybe. And I'd call them a week later and I'd say, listen, I just want to let you know I'm still here if something changes. And it usually turned out they'd be like, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and do an audit and let me see if I can lower the cost of my premiums? And that's kind of how I started my business. In my industry, I work for the client. I'm not captive to a carrier. So for
Mm,
example, I don't work for AXA or Hartford or Mass Mutual. I don't work for one company. So the difference is I work for the client. I'm looking for the product that best serves the client's needs. And that's the big difference. And so in 2011, I believe it was, AXA had a product that was really good. And it was like, you made one premium payment and it prepaid the policy for 5 years. It was mispriced, but I sold it like crazy and I became their like number one agent. And they were like, who is this Deborah Gaylord? Because I wasn't captive to them, but they had a product that I was selling left and right. It was a great product. And so I just didn't stop. I would go through my day and I would say, okay, I'm going to go through my phone until I get one person that is a potential client. And that's kind of how I built my business. And from there, then I got referred into business managers, accountants, family offices that, now you have more affluent wealth. And so these people understand that life insurance is a great vehicle to have to preserve wealth and create wealth using a tax free vehicle, which life insurance is. And so that was an easier sell because they already understood it. And they understood
mm.
how it could be used to preserve wealth. And so then things got really exciting because now I'm getting referred into places that I would not normally. And it didn't it helps a lot that I work with probably the number one life agent in the United States. So, I think I've chosen wisely as far as who I've teamed up with. Same thing with real estate and life insurance again, not three times. Guess what life insurance, what you have to be good at. You have to be good with people.
Well, I think one of the things you're touching on there is what we're starting to see a lot more. Not only people realize, but employers realize. And I realize now that when I say that, it makes it sound like I'm saying employers aren't people. They're also people. But my point is, we're starting to see more recognition and respect for soft skills. There's always been the hard skills, or whatever you actually want to call them, the degrees, the certifications, all those different type of things. But soft skills were always undervalued, but you knew it when you saw it because the CEOs typically have it. Like I always point out on this my podcast, whenever I'm given the opportunity to get on my digital soapbox, is that Mark Zuckerberg's not the smartest guy at Facebook. Mark Cuban isn't the best basketball player at the for the Mavericks and stuff like that. And that's not how a lot of this stuff works. But what they do have a lot of times is the proper soft skills to do those positions. And so we really are starting to see a rise in respect for soft skills. And I think you did something, whether intrinsically or whether somebody had mentioned it to you as a good idea, that a lot of successful people recommend, and that's go work for free for somebody. Or not. Let me rephrase that. I don't think you worked for free, but you were his assistant. You went and you found somebody that you wanted to learn to be like, and instead of just asking them to tell you stuff, like, let me work with you, let me work for you, let me learn by doing the process with you day in day out. And a lot of people don't simply don't have the ability to do that, either because they're too prideful or because they've already put themselves in such a hole that they can't financially afford to go work for somebody as an assistant, or go work for somebody for free for a few hours to learn stuff like that. So I think in your story there, you see a lot of the same things that made you successful initially through your entertainment career, whether it be Playboy or the acting or anything else that you had done, or the modeling that you had done before, um, is the same things that served you well in your next phase, in your next career. And I think that's what the more I talk to successful people, the more that I notice that. Most successful people can be successful in a multitude of things because of that mentality, because of the repeated defeating of pride, the work ethic, like just a lot of different factors that add up to them being successful multiple times over. And so you go from being a Playboy playmate where people may be shunning you, they assume you're not that intelligent because you're in Playboy, blah 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 blah, to being, like you said, one of the top salespeople in your entire industry. And
Yeah,
so that just goes to show, first of all, there is no correlation between intelligence and being in Playboy or not being in Playboy. That's a nonsense, a theme that people started a long time ago because it made them feel better about attractive people, right? Like if somebody's attractive, they have to be stupid because that will make me feel better that they
yeah,
have that flaw, right?
yeah.
um, but I think that it's just incredible to me, like I said, that you were able to do that. And I don't know a lot about life insurance, to be honest with you. I know that I have it. I know that it's something that everybody should have because it's just a smart way to spend your money. But I think it's interesting that I didn't know that you were able to do what you did, which is kind of really find the best package for your client, no matter what company that went for. So that's an interesting factoid to me already. And then that also makes it even more clear why you're a good salesperson because you sold something that you believed in to people who needed it.
Yeah,
That's when you're a good
absolutely.
salesperson. If you're selling people stuff they don't need or stuff you don't believe in, it's a problem.
Yeah, you definitely want to choose something that you love and that you have and you
Mhm.
believe in. Well, it's funny when you go back to the soft skills comment, the joke when I was in the real estate office, I didn't know how to use a scanner, I didn't know how to fax, I barely knew how to send an email. But I would sit open house for all Rich's multi-million dollar listings and people would come in and they would say, I would you list my house to me? And I'd say, absolutely, and so I'd go and I'd meet them and I'd look at their house and we'd talk about, I didn't know that I had an eye for any of that, and so I had an eye for that. I knew how we could sell the house. And then, Rich was the expert on how to market it and the pricing and all of that. But I'd come back to the office with all the paperwork and I'd go to the girls and I'd say, "Hey, could somebody show me how to use that machine with the button with the thing for the scan thing and how do I
Mhm.
get it so it goes to my email?" And they would laugh and it's because I didn't take myself seriously, and I was asking for help. And the joke in the office became she goes and gets a $2 million listing but she doesn't know how to use a scanner. And that was my story. I didn't know how to use a scanner. And they taught me. I mean, when I left there, I knew how to use it and I know how to do that today. But at the time, it was a foreign machine. I didn't know what button to push or how to, or I didn't even know that I could scan to my email. Like that was so foreign to me. And they just laughed. They're like, "But you got the $2 million listing." I'm like, "Yeah." And it was that I think when you focus on what you do have in any
Mhm.
situation, whether it's work, relationship, spiritual, financial, growth, whatever it is, when you focus on what you do have, you get more of it. And it's all about just being in gratitude. If I sit and focus on what I don't have or what I really want, it seems to me my lesson is I don't usually get it. When I focus on what I do have, I get more of it. When I'm really grateful, when I go, "Wow, I have a car." I'm super grateful. Or if it's kind of like when you find a penny on the ground and you pick it up and if you immediately say, "Thank you so much for showing me that there's abundance in this world," instead of a penny, big deal. But when you're grateful for that, you're going to be grateful for the bigger things too. And I can just tell you this, I've been on both sides
Mhm.
where, you know, I thought, and I would say this out loud in the energy universe, whatever you believe in, but I would say things like, if I just had $1 million, my life would be so great. If I just had this, if I just had that. And then, by the way, those things happened. I got $1 million and my life didn't change and I didn't get so much happier. And there's big lessons to be learned. It's like, be careful what you're wishing for because I remember I used to say when I was really down and out, like really down and out, I was staying with my mom And I did some crazy, crazy jobs when I was living with my mom just to make a buck. I worked on a boat, cleaned toilets. I mean, I did crazy stuff. And not crazy stuff, but you know what I mean? Like really hard
Hmm.
work. And
Yeah.
and I remember saying if I could just make enough money to get my kids through school and provide them with what they need, that's all I need. That was kind of like my prayer, my mantra, call it what you will. And that happened. I made enough money to get my kids through school, to provide and give them what they needed. And and then some. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? I should really be careful what I wish for because, in a really strange way, when you look back on your life, and I've done this now, I've really looked back and journaled about this, that the things that I really set out to do and asked for and visualized and was maniacal about, they actually happened without me realizing it until I really looked at the whole pattern. And when I looked at, like when I started out to do modeling and commercials, and everyone was telling me, you know how hard that is? Like 1 in a million make it. 1 in a million get a commercial. You're only 5'6". Fashion models are 5'10". I mean, I had everything thrown my way, every reason why I could not do something, and how crazy I was for doing it. And it just reminds me that, people are going to tell you that because if they can't see it for themselves, they cannot see it for you. And if you really keep that in your mind when you're making decisions about yourself and you're really careful who you go to with your dreams, because they'll squash it. Because if they can't see it for themselves, they're not going to see it for you. And people in my life at that time, there's no way. Like, what are you talking about? You're going to move to LA, like Hollywood, and you're going to be an actress? What? Like, nobody in my life was going, oh, that's great. Good for you. You'd be awesome at that. I had everybody giving me all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And I had to tell myself the reasons why it would. And the first thing I did, I remember I signed up for this commercial workshop in LA, and I thought, well, let's just see, because this commercial workshop was famous. It was called Tepper Gallegos. It was on Sunset, and it was like 6 to 8 weeks. And at the end of those 6 to 8 weeks, they had agents come in and they gave you a commercial on the spot. Didn't get to rehearse it, and you had to go in front of the camera and do a commercial, almost like an audition. And then at the end of the night, the agents would go up to the actors and tell them whether or not they wanted to sign them, or, you'd either get signed or you didn't. Well, I had 3 agents that night that wanted to sign me. And I chose to go with an agency called Pacific Artists because they had a modeling agency attached called Mary Webb Davis. And I thought, perfect, because I want to model too. And the modeling agency told me, you're only 5'6", you're not going to get a lot of work, but if you want to do some test shooting and give us a portfolio and make a Z card. Back then you had to have all these different things. And it was 1984, and it was a different world. You had to show up with a book with photos for casting people to look at. And so I did. I did all these test shoots, and wouldn't you know, I booked catalogs and swimsuit companies and Fedco, and I became the model on the Fashion Channel. That was before QVC and before Home Shopping Network. There was the Fashion Channel where they sold clothes 24 hours a day, and I was a model regular on that show. Wait, this is way before Playboy. And so all those people that were the naysayers, you know, and so I tell you now, if you have a dream, you don't let anybody squash your dream because they can't see it. They're not living in your mind. If you're visualizing and you see your dream, you have to stay true and maniacal to your vision.
And I think that's the thread throughout all of your story, right? And your story is not done by any means, obviously, but it is you seeing what you want for yourself and then going out to get it. One of the things I try to tell people is you don't necessarily need to tell yourself the reason things won't work because everybody else can do that for you. Everybody else will do that for
A
you,
hundred
you
percent.
know?
100%.
So just tell yourself why it can work. And then if you ever get too high on your own supply, as they say,
Yes.
then you can talk to somebody else and they'll bring you down to earth. You know what I mean? There's always somebody who's ready to bring you down to earth. It's hard to find people who are going to help you visualize whatever it is that you're out there trying to seek if it's off the beaten path,
Yep.
right? Because at our core, humans, like you said, we only look at other people as an extension of ourselves sometimes. And so if I don't see it for me, I can't see it for you. And so I think that's one of the struggles that we often go through. So now we've got Deborah, and she can't be a model. Excuse me. Let me start it in order. She can't be an actor. Okay, well, she's doing a little acting. Well, she can't be a model. Okay, she's doing a little modeling. Well, she can't do this. She can't do this. She can't do this. She can't work with Van Jones on his different projects. She can't work with Operation Underground on their different projects. It's like there's all these things that people are constantly saying you can't do. You can't
Yeah.
sell life insurance. You can't do all these things, and then you just keep checking those boxes because you're telling yourself you can. Thanks for checking out Starting Nowhere. Come find us on Facebook so you can comment on this and other clips and episodes of Starting Nowhere.